Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to She Leads Africa's webinar today with Nene. She is the founder of Groundworks and Nnua Cakes, two businesses that she started while she was in university. She's currently now studying biomedical sciences at Wits University, and so I'm very excited to have her with us today. She's currently now studying biomedical science. Okay, Nene, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Omalayo. Thank you for having me today. Very cool, amazing initiative and great campaign to get amazing women together. My name is Nene Mboweni, and I am a student and an entrepreneur. And yeah, really great to be here and live with you guys today.
Hi, sorry. Okay, I think I lost the volume a little bit, but I'm just gonna go ahead and jump in right into our first question. Okay, so what inspired you to start your business, and when did you realize it was a business idea as opposed to an extracurricular activity? Because a lot of students can just start baking on the side and just use it as like a club or something of that nature, but you decided to take it to the level of a business. How did you get to that side?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it's I always find that the answer is not as predictable or as glamorous as it needs to be. But I'd always been a very avid baker. I'd loved baking, and I'd always known that in the long run, I'd wanted to start my own businesses. Definitely not in the food industry. So this one definitely came as a surprise to me as well. Baking was a hobby, just a hobby in high school. I used to do it with my best friend. And we used to do it as a means just to de-stress and have fun. Was never really good at recipes, but I loved the artwork and I enjoyed that part. But I was never good with recipes, and this is why this was definitely a very shocking experience for me. So spontaneous in its nature. But when I was in matric, I used to bake cakes for my colleagues at school, and I used to take those cakes to school, and we would just share, and it just became, one thing led to another, and it became a one-hit wonder on campus at school. And before you know it, I had my teachers would order cakes for me, the school would order cakes for me, and I would do this all free until I realized that baking is just definitely a very expensive hobby. So you cannot afford to do it free of charge. So I thought, well, how can I charge for these cakes? I've got to put some value to them. At the time, I was still using ingredients straight from the supermarket. So your very, very expensive milk, basic milk, not having any supply chain in place, and just the same milk that you buy, I was using to make my cakes. So it cost me quite a lot to make these cakes, and I realized I had to charge for them. I did start doing that. And it was overwhelming at first, because then, you start one thing and you put yourself out there, and again, one thing leads to another, and you realize that, well, there's some structure that needed to be put to this. And so I registered a company, and I got started with my little venture.
That's so wonderful. Your cakes have been used by various organizations like Transnet and Vodacom and Pre-Media, and you've also even, and Jimmy Choo, and you've also even baked for Nelson Mandela, the late Nelson Mandela's wife, Winnie. And so tell us how you were able to make those networks and get to that level and be able to bake for those high profile clients.
So yeah, again, I was actually watching another webinar from earlier in the week, and I saw one of your guests was speaking on social media. And I think social media has changed the dynamic in which we operate as businesses, and I owe it all to social media. When I started my business, without mentioning earlier, the first platform in which I began to trade or take orders and conduct business was actually on an online platform, because it was easier to deal. It was cost effective. I hadn't really had systems in place. So the only way I could avoid my clients from seeing that I had no systems in place was to do all of this online. So it helped a great deal because it's very, very quick to get across to your clientele. And as much as you can be selective about your clientele by what you post, in the same manner as you can automatically and uncontrollably recruit and get more clients day by day. However, I think we must never underestimate the power of word of mouth. Word of mouth had an incredible impact on the growth of my business. I always say I owe it all to my clientele. I owe it all to my clients because trust is one thing to gain from a client. It's incredible. If you build the trust with the client, it's another thing to maintain that relationship with the client. Once you're able to maintain that relationship, automatically you're able to access your very client's network as well. So you can imagine 10 clients is equivalent to 100 clients. So that had an incredible impact on things. And just presentation, social media presentation. I'm a very nitty-gritty kind of somebody. So anything I put out, I wish it has to be a true representation of the person behind it. So the pics I made, I take time on the kind of photos we take, the kind of commenting that you place, and that all had to play in the kind of attention you attract and the kind of caliber of people you attract. One of my first big orders was for the African National Congress at the time. I was in matric at the time. I was writing my final year exam. And this order came in, and at the time I said to my mom, I was like, "Bro, I don't even have an oven. How are we going to do this thing?" And my mom, being the constant pushing force behind all of this, said to me, "Listen, we will cross that bridge when we get there. Your duty is to plan the design, and we'll make this thing work." I have a client, a very, very amazing client, who loves to say to me, "Fake it till you make it, girl." So you can do it. When the time comes, you will make sure you deliver on that day. Say you can deliver, even if you know you've got no cash, nothing, make sure you can make that cake, get it done. And I think, service delivery, one thing is I'd always made sure that even if I didn't know how things were going to go, as long as my client was happy, and I would find some way to make everything else meet ends. So definitely word of mouth. Word of mouth is incredible. It's played an amazing role in the growth of my business. And, never to underestimate the little things. They go a really long way. Kindness and good ethics in dealing with my clients. Sincerity. Clients appreciate these things. And I can honestly bet my bottom dollar on this one. I have honestly built the most beautiful relationships with my clients. And other business opportunities have been born out of just that simple engagement, Just lastly, it's really, it makes an incredible difference for your client to get directly to you and get what they want from you versus a client going through a PA and 100 other people before they can get to you. That intimacy really builds confidence and builds amazing relationships and only adds value to the word of mouth.
That's so wonderful, and it sounds like your mom was also played a big part in being a support system for you and making sure you were able to make those ends meet. And so, networking with your networks, like you say, but also ensuring that you're tapping into your friends and family to support you in the places where you might fall short. So you've told us a little bit about Nnua Cakes. And so we want to know, and so that came out of a hobby, but how about Groundworks? That one just seems very, out of the blue or what have you. And so tell us a little bit about how you got that one started and particularly how you were able to fund it as particularly on a student budget. What networks and what people did you meet that allowed you to bring Groundworks together? And I also understand it's a co-founded business, correct?
Yeah. Yes. So that one is it's an interesting one as well, again, because as I'd mentioned earlier in our conversation, that I had always known that in the long run I'd wanted to start businesses, and one of them was to be in property, invest in property, develop and create beautiful pieces of property in the long run. However, this one came one day. My mom had taken me with her to a conference. Was it a conference or like a seminar called Women in Construction? We have a lot of those that happen this side. There's women in construction, women in rail, my mom herself, she would just drag me to everything. She would just say, I never understand the point of going to these events. And she would wake me up in the morning at 8 o'clock. She'd be like, get dressed, look like you have your stuff together. Let's go. You're going to start business now. You're going to learn a thing or two, and you're going to be forward in the industry, and you're going to engage. You're never too young to get into these things. Very reluctant to jump on things with her, extremely, because as a young somebody, you've got other things to do. You want to be chilling and doing whatever makes you feel great, but work is not one of them. So my mom grabbed me with her, and we went to a woman in construction. Amazing things that came out of it. I would say inspiring to say the least. I am a very, as is probably clear from the way these two businesses are on the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm a very impulsive person. I am. And when I think of something, I conceive it. I give birth tomorrow. So I'm about that. And so it was one of those, we went to this event, and I really had felt that this is an industry that is clearly should not be exclusive to men. And we need to begin to break through those barriers. And a friend of mine at the time, we were doing a charity initiative, Iman, who's the co-founder of Mkweni Groundworks. Iman calls me on this day, and she says to me, how are we running with our charity things? Are you able to come and whatnot? Business of the day out the way. And then she says to me, I don't know about you, but I've had a thought. I'm feeling like this is an industry, construction. This is an industry that we need to break ground in. I think we need to penetrate these barriers. So I said, it's crazy. It's either just by coincidence or the Holy Spirit is at work here, because I've just come back from a seminar, and this has been on my mind the whole day. And I'm not sure how we're going to go about this, but it's definitely worth a thought. So I said, let's think about this one. Let's put it on hold. And fast forward, eventually we decide to start this company. And we get our first project, a very cool project, which we got. Construction, by the way, just, for some of the listeners, it's all about grading. So you can't just go and get big work, and you can't just go and build bridges it's all about grading and growth. And you get grading through working with bigger companies, JVing to advance your grading, more experience, going to workshops while at the time, there was a parastatal that was running what they call a small enterprise development program, which is one of the programs we tried to jump on. And so we got our first project, we worked on it together. The funding model worked as follows. So for my first business, Nnua Cakes, actually, I had put an Uber. I don't know if you guys know what Uber is, Uber cars. Yes, Uber vehicles. Yes, right, sorry. I put a car on Uber, and so my Uber began to generate income, which flowed into my actual cake business. So I had a form of income and small cash flow, which would help me run the business and be able to accumulate profit and growth in some kind of way, which then was able to help me feed profits back into Mkweni Groundworks for us to do the little works and whatever. We did get to a point where we needed to borrow some money, so we borrowed a bit of money from my mom. Again, my mom, she strong believer in entrepreneurship and small and humble beginnings. So it was very easy to get through to that source of funding, because yes, as you mentioned, student budgets and those kind of things don't quite meet at the same point. But long and short of it was, yes, we had to borrow some money, and I used money from my other business venture to fund our Mkweni Groundworks projects.
That's awesome. Thank you for that background. That really helps us put it in perspective as how you were able to get both of them started. But now the one that everyone really wants to know is, how do you do it all? Because not only do you run these two businesses, but you're also studying biomedical sciences, and you also work and volunteer at the hospital, and you tutor in your free time when you have free time. So tell us how you're able to balance all these things, and particularly, how do you prioritize between schoolwork and businesses? And then also, you're still a daughter and a friend. And so how do you also balance your personal engagements and your personal relationships with all these other things that you have going on? So just enlighten us a little bit about that. And maybe your time management structure as well. I think people are usually interested in that.
So I think firstly, this one is a bit of it's more of a personal preference. I think, I'm a kind of work hard under pressure. I'm a life and death somebody. I can't get things done if I'm not under pressure. So if I know that something needs to be done, I need pressure to get it done. If I'm not under pressure, I become a little bit relaxed and complacent. So as far as, and in the same time, it doesn't help to be someone who's complacent, but have goals and things you want to achieve. And I think that's sentiment I can share with students and fellow young people. But complacency is something we struggle with a lot. So I think the pressure in itself is very, very demanding. So it really requires crude and aggressive time management. It really requires, you have to always maintain a very organized state of mind, which is difficult, easier said than done. Easier said than done for sure. But I think by virtue of being young, one of our greatest bargaining power, pieces of bargaining power, is that we actually have the luxury of being able to choose how we want to prioritize our time. So, the older we get, it's a lot harder, I'm sure. So, having kids, that's not a choice, whether we're going to attend to them or not. So, being young, it allows a lot for this. It definitely helps to be goal-orientated, extremely, because, if you're not meeting goals and deadlines, then it's an indication that you're slacking, and then you need to pick up on one end of things, and it will give you an idea as to where you need to pick up. So if you're not meeting goals academically, then you have to put the one on hold. And I think it's one thing. Another thing that I've been really so fortunate to find clients who are so understanding. I think it's one thing I'd always put out as part of my my marketing strategy is that I'm a student at the same time making cakes, which was a really incredible buying point for my clients. So my clients understand. Most of my clients will email. They'll be like, "Hi, Nene. I'd like to order a cake, but how's the exams? How are the strikes going on campus? Are you able to help?" And that's amazing because that's just not how the real world works. But clearly, we're changing things as young people. So it's a really cool. I think it's important to just letting my client know. And as far as other business is concerned, my partner, fortunately, she's a graduate herself, so she was able to carry up when things were not, when I needed to attend to my schoolwork. But again, it's about planning, critical planning and aggressive planning, and being so to the T with everything. By nature, I am a meticulous person, so when things don't go the way they're supposed to be going, I panic, I stress, and the only way to get out of situations like that is to organize myself and remove what is being stressful. As far as personal relationships are concerned, so I'd be lying if I said and made it sound as easy as it all sounds, that prioritizing time is what needs to be done. It's definitely an oversimplification. However, a lot of things have had to give. Many things have had to give. I'm not sure if it's unfortunate, because I always say that I can afford to sacrifice things now versus 10 years later. I would hate to have to sacrifice things for 10 years versus being able to sacrifice things now. And I can lose out on the extra playtime. I can lose out on the night benches. My parents, I'm from a very strict home, and as you know, I still do and run my life from my home. So I'm still under my parents' authority. So it became really easy because where I did have free time, like in the evenings, I could use that time in organizing administration and just putting everything in place, extra study time. So I spent a lot of my time indoors, which is a pity. I think some of the cons of this is that it is a bit of a lonely journey. And so an important support structure is extremely important. So, your kind of friends will be few because sometimes friends don't really understand that girl needs to get her stuff done now. But when you do find those, I have a gang of them, and I hope they are watching because they know themselves. I do have an amazing bunch of friends who are just as driven and so goal-oriented. I sometimes find myself being the odd one out. I have friends who are doing incredible stuff academically. I have one friend who's planning to become a doctor at the same time being a scientist as well. So friends like that help you also feel like you're not the odd one out. And it's good to find people like that. It's really good. Don't underestimate that association. It's really critical. So having friends who understand that, it makes the process so much easier. I mean, my friends, a lot of my business runs on them. They would come home when they can. Most of them study in Cape Town, so when they're in Joburg, they come and they bake. They help me. They get it done, and that is could only be God sent. So I think it's a lot of time prioritizing. If you would put it in summary, prioritizing your time, very organized state of mind is critical. Being goal orientated and being deliberate in the company you keep. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you for putting that nicely for us in the list. And I do think some of your friends must be watching right now because you're getting a lot of love messages on the screen. A lot of people saying like, "You go, girl! Really proud of you." So definitely some friends in this crowd. And I think it's so important that we are able to surround ourselves with people who understand our goals, understand our visions, and have similar ones. Because then we push each other, and we're all striving for amazing goals. And people say you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. And so if you're hanging out with other motherland moguls, you're able to push yourselves even further. Okay, so jumping right into our next question, you're not going to be a student forever. And so after graduation, what are your plans? And then particularly, where do you see your business in 5 years? And how do you plan to get it there?
Okay. So yeah, 5 years, I would call that short-term goal planning. So as far as business is concerned, on the one hand of things, as far as Nnua Cakes is concerned, definitely, which I have begun the process and processes in place to get this one on the floor. And this is a little bit of unpublicized information, but it's great if we get to launch this on TV. Is that I am planning to start an academy, a baking academy in South Africa, in which we are really directly aimed at teaching young girls and home staff as well to learn how to bake and how to be very, very equipped in the kitchen and get things done. So that is one that we are working on. I've been working on this one for a minute now. As well as expansion. However, as far as expansion is concerned on the side of Nnua Cakes, is not to go as big because it was always meant to remain a very intimate, gourmet, and a very personal experience with my clientele. So I think that's where target market and niche comes in. However, because looking at some of our prospects and our planning around this is that in order for general business principle would state that in order to expand, you need to scale, and sometimes something's going to give, which is quality. And one of the things my clients have really held on to is quality. So as far as Nnua Cakes is concerned, we may not expand as much as I had originally planned in the beginning, but we will definitely have a few stores around, and it will become a mobile cake delivering system. As far as other business is concerned, so as we had spoken about earlier, I have great passion in the medical industry, medical business as well, as far as food fortification is concerned, and just finding a way for us to administer healthcare to kids in Africa through food as a vehicle to do this. So we've been looking at a lot of technologies behind that. We've been able to get vitamin A fortified sugar. I'm not sure if you were aware of that one. Which we've begun distributing in South Africa. We launched this in June in Vosloorus. So this is one of the closest and biggest ones to my heart within the 5-year short-term plan, is to try to roll out a lot of this in Africa at large. And we're looking at specifically at vitamin A fortification, vitamin D, and the critical ones, And I think for now that's where we stand. As well as on the side of Mkweni Groundworks, we have been working on property development in Cape Town. So, but property is 5 years. I'm not sure. This is a bit of a long-term one. So, yeah, that is the direction things are taking currently.
That's so amazing. And no, I wasn't aware of that third one with the vitamin A fortification. Is that the direction in which you're able to then mix your studies with biomedical science? Because that was my last question my second to last question was how are you now able to take these two businesses and some of the other ideas that you have and mix them in with the time that you spent at university and use your academic knowledge to move your businesses forward?
No, that's exactly it. Yes, and I mean, that the industry in itself is, I'm sure many of us would know, the industry in itself is so fertile, innovation in the medical space, and it's highly demanding. So research is so critical to forming business models in that place of work. So the research and the academic backing from this would really lay a foundation for me to develop innovative solutions in Africa, pertaining specifically to Africa, because a lot of the research and a lot of the work that's being done right now is more pioneered in Western nations. So, some things need to be tailor-made to who we are as African people, and it only takes African scientists to get that one done, African doctors to get it done. So, who are we to say we can't?
That's amazing. And it's so true that even if it's an idea that we see in the West, we can't just pick it up and transplant it to Africa. We need to make sure that it fits our cultures and our people and our goals and our visions. And so that's why it's so important to have amazing African scientists like yourself and your friends that you were talking about earlier, driving that and pushing that forward. And so with that, my final question for you is, what advice would you give to people out there who are trying to start a business while they're in school, or actually a lot of the people who are on right now might not necessarily be in school, they might be busy working moms or just people who are juggling a lot, but they know that they have this passion in their hearts to branch out into entrepreneurship. What advice would you give them moving forward?
Okay, so the first one from a bit of a collaboration between a business and personal contribution would be, I think people feel you out in the business environment. People feel you out, and they'll decide whether they will, one, choose to trust you, and two, choose to support your business experience. So, sometimes I don't think you can pursue any business venture with a bad heart. If you choose to take on a good intention and a good heart, then I think success is so predictable. Hard work, success is predictable. Organization, being deliberate in every little thing that you do goes a long way because you can account for things. You're able to track back on where on the timelines you are sitting and owe it all to yourself, scrutinize yourself, grow your character, and all of that can only add to a perfect explosion, I would call it, perfect explosion of an amazing business model. Good character. I know it's not probably what listeners want to hear, and I can give a complicated business side of things, but sometimes it's the little things. It's the little things that will finesse a beautiful business model, will finesse your success. So if we were to, again, summarize a few things, I would say do it and start a business with a good heart. You're most likely, you stand a higher chance of making money from a business if you started with not really having the intentions to make money as you would have if you decided to go rob a bank. My brother likes to say that if you decide to go rob a bank, you stand a better chance of getting money than you would if you started a business with the intentions of just clearly making it. So just good intentions, a good heart with clear direction will get you very, very far. Discipline, so critical. I never mentioned this earlier, but discipline, again, very underrated. Discipline will take us far as young people. And I think consultations with those who have gone before us has helped a lot. And being very, very deliberate, but in the same time, sincere in how you tap into networks. So, basic business etiquette, gentle but aggressive in the same light, if you get me. And so organization, goal-orientated, good time management, very, very calm and organized state of mind. And I think that would be a good potion.
And discipline, like you said. So awesome. Thank you so, so much for joining us today. We have one quick question from Mikhail, who wants to know if you ever feel pressure to specialize because you have so many diversified options as far as your businesses and your studies.
Yeah, I do. And I think that is, that I'm in that current pit right now. I am. However, my sort of business rationale lately has been to, I would say, diversify my business portfolio, work on those to allow, I would say, to allow, what's the word? To allow them to sustain themselves, to allow easy sustainability, and naturally a cash flow can help me generate income to pursue what I really want to pursue and focus on that for the rest of my time in the environment and business sector allows me to.
That's awesome. So trying to be getting to a point where you can be a little bit more hands-off and the businesses are self-sustaining. That's a really great direction to go, especially when you're thinking about growing and scaling, because when you want to be an entrepreneur that has multiple businesses, you can't be the one that runs every single thing in each of them, because then you're just going to wear yourself into the ground. So I definitely appreciate that perspective as well. And so just to go ahead and wrap everything up, thank you so, so much. We appreciate you taking your time out of your busy exam week to speak with us. To the audience out there, She Leads Africa is actually coming to Johannesburg this week, and we're going to be in South Africa for the next 2 weeks actually. So please head to our website to find out more about these events. And I put some links below where you can join our community so that you learn about events like the one we had today with Nene, whenever we have webinars or whenever we're coming to a town near you. When you're a part of our community, you get updates about that on a weekly basis. And so in Johannesburg, what we're doing is our She Hive bootcamp that we've had in several cities throughout this year. And Johannesburg is our last one for 2016. And it's a 4-day bootcamp where you're able to network with amazing women and also build your skills around the various aspects that you need to either grow your business or advance your career. And so the link to the tickets for She Hive Joburg is also below in the description box. And the link to join our community is also below. And we're actually coming to Nene's town on November 15th. We'll be in Cape Town. We're having a brunch with one of our co-founders. And so if you're interested in that as well, please go ahead to our website and I'll put the link below as well. And so with that, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And a special thank you to Nene for taking time out of her exam schedule to go ahead and give us insight into her business and her story. And we're just really excited for you, and we're excited to see where you are in the next couple of years.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Good night.
Bye.